In a game that will forever be etched into NFL history for its sheer absurdity and statistical novelty, Sunday Night Football between the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers ended not with triumph or heartbreak, but with something far rarer. A 40-40 tie, the first of its kind in league history. It was a score so bizarre that fans immediately started drawing tongue-in-cheek parallels to Jay-Z's famed 40-40 club, the 40-40 benchmark of baseball greatness. Even the deuce scoreline in tennis. Yet, beneath the novelty of the final score was a clash layered with narrative threads that stretched far beyond the box score. A game that raised as many questions about both franchises' futures as it answered. The Cowboys entered the night desperate for a win, sitting at 1-2 and licking their wounds after losing star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb to a high ankle sprain on a perplexing running play in Chicago. The absence of Lamb, coupled with the conspicuous presence of Micah Parsons, now suiting up for Green Bay following a blockbuster trade that still has the league buzzing, gave the matchup a soap opera subplot worthy of primetime television. Parsons, a generational defensive talent who had once defined Dallas's identity on that side of the ball, was held relatively in check by his former teammates. Just one sack, a handful of tackles, and a series of uncalled holding penalties that Cowboys fans swear could fill a highlight reel of their own. Early on, it looked like Dallas's woes would deepen. A 13-0 deficit and a deflating special teams miscue, the kind of play that has jolted teams awake or buried them early all season, seemed to signal another Cowboys collapse. But then Dak Prescott, so often the target of criticism in the biggest moments, turned in a performance that reminded the NFL why he's still considered one of the league's most dangerous quarterbacks when he's in rhythm. Prescott finished with 319 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and even added a rushing score, becoming the first quarterback in Cowboys history to hit that statistical combination in a single game. It was, as many observers framed it, a revenge game masterclass, and it came without his top weapon. Prescott's leadership galvanized an offense that desperately needed direction. George Pickens, once a source of frustration in Pittsburgh, erupted for a career-best 134 yards and 2 touchdowns on 11 targets, leaving Steelers fans wondering what might have been. Tight end Jake Ferguson, whose last touchdown came in the Cowboys' 2023 wildcard loss to these same Packers, found the end zone again. Running back Javonte Williams powered a revitalized ground attack, and offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer, whose hiring was initially dismissed as a cost-cutting move, suddenly looked like a man with a plan. And yet, for all that offensive brilliance, the Cowboys still couldn't pull away. Green Bay, for its part, proved equally resilient. Jordan Love, once derided as a placeholder for a rebuilding team, matched Prescott throw for throw, finishing with 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 118.1 passer rating, his best of the season. He improved to 10-1 in games where he posts a passer rating above 115, a statistic that underscores his steady maturation as a starter. His rapport with Romeo Doubs, who caught all 3 of Love's touchdown passes, was undeniable, and emerging weapons like Tucker Kraft and Matthew Golden hinted at an offense that's only beginning to tap into its potential. Even an injury-depleted offensive line held up long enough to keep the offense humming, paving the way for a balanced attack that looked far removed from the inconsistent unit that stumbled out of the gates earlier this year. And therein lies the story of this 40-40 thriller. 2 teams, both flawed, yet formidable, still trying to discover who they really are. For Dallas, the question is consistency. This is a roster capable of beating anyone. A team that has toppled the Giants in a comeback thriller, pushed the Eagles to the brink, and flashed offensive creativity under Schottenheimer. Yet also one that suffered a bewildering loss to Chicago and stumbled against lesser opponents. They're a team that looks every bit a contender one week and a fringe playoff hopeful the next. For Green Bay, the tie could prove costly beyond the immediate frustration. A win would have vaulted them into first place in the NFC North thanks to their Week 1 blowout over Detroit, a Lions team that hasn't lost since, and given them a crucial head-to-head tiebreaker. It's not the outcome either side envisioned when the schedule makers circled this game in red ink months ago, yet here they are, standing half a game apart, locked in a divisional chess match that now feels more consequential than ever. Instead of surging ahead, Green Bay finds itself just a half step behind the Detroit Lions. The looming Thanksgiving rematch now carrying the weight of a potential season-defining showdown. And for the Packers, that tie, bizarre, frustrating, and historic, may carry consequences far beyond the standings column. It might ultimately cost them the chance to sweep the Lions, a result that could have broken the deadlock in a division where margins are measured not in games, but in inches, where a single play in October can reverberate into January. Yet amid the frustration, there's reason for optimism in Green Bay. Their youthful offense, once written off as too raw to contend, is beginning to find its rhythm. The quarterback, whose early season struggles were dissected and debated across talk shows and Twitter feeds, is evolving before our eyes, showing poise, precision, and command in high-pressure moments. And then there's the headline-grabbing acquisition of Micah Parsons, a move that sent shockwaves through the NFL when it was announced and is now starting to look like a masterstroke. Parsons hasn't just elevated the Packers' pass rush, he's altered their defensive identity, transforming them from a promising unit into one that flashes dominance. And what of that trade? The one that dominated headlines, divided fan bases, and redefined expectations for both franchises. It remains, without question, one of the most polarizing decisions of the modern era. For Dallas, dealing away their most electrifying defensive weapon was more than a roster move. It was a philosophical shift, a calculated risk rooted in cap management and long-term planning. They bet that the savings in future draft capital could outweigh the immediate loss of a generational talent. A win in Green Bay would have been the ultimate validation of that gamble, a declaration that the Cowboys could shed a superstar and still thrive. For the Packers, on the other hand, the move screamed ambition. It was a bold statement of intent, a signal to the rest of the conference that they weren't content merely to compete. They were determined to contend. Parsons was supposed to be the piece that turned a solid defense into a championship-caliber one. And while Sunday night didn't settle the debate, it offered a tantalizing preview of what that future might look like. This wasn't a game that provided closure or clarity. It didn't hand either franchise the signature win they craved or deliver a defining verdict on their roster-building philosophies. Instead, it offered something subtler, but perhaps more revealing. A snapshot, a single chapter in a season-long saga still being written. And what a chapter it was. This was football in its most compelling form, a 4-hour epic that swung from blowout to barn burner, that blended drama and chaos with tactical depth and individual brilliance. It was a showcase of stars stepping into the spotlight and young players seizing their moments. It was a roller coaster that laid bare each team's flaws and magnified their strengths, leaving fans of both franchises suspended in that uniquely NFL limbo, somewhere between hope and heartache. But above all, it was a reminder of why this sport commands our attention and captures our imaginations. Because even in a tie, even in a result that, on paper, satisfies no one, there is meaning, there is growth, there is story. In the sterile finality of the box score, a 40-40 deadlock might look like a wash, a statistical anomaly.